Week 2 of college football is in the books. And my goodness, what a crazy week it was. Tyler, this always seems to happen. There's a week where you look at the schedule and you say, there's not a lot of great matchups here. There's one top 20 matchup. Game day obviously goes to Norman. Maybe Missouri, Kansas. Maybe the Cy-Hawk game. Maybe it's Iowa State, Iowa. That's your second biggest game of the week. Some people might have looked at Ole Miss, Kentucky as a big deal. Some people might have picked some other game we're not thinking of at the moment. Baylor, SMU comes to mind. Illinois, Duke as well. Those are games that, for the casual person, might not move the needle. But if you love this sport, you're obviously going to sit down and watch it. But we got blindsided by major upsets that happened instead. Let's just get right into it. Let's start with, I think, the story of week 2. Oklahoma. We knew they'd have a defense, but my God, the offense is back. 24 points, more than enough to beat Michigan. It was a wonderful time in Norman. I was there. I was loud. That's the whole reason this thing wasn't up Sunday night, by the way. There was no AP poll video we did. None of that, because I did not have a voice yesterday. I just did not. I just could.
That's understandable.
Yeah, we could not do a video because you would have an entire video where you would barely be able to hear me, and that would be terrible.
I mean, it was a raucous environment, great crowd, great atmosphere. Now, the offense being back, I don't know if I'm quite there. John Mateer is legit. I do know that. John Mateer is the real deal. He's a different dude, right?
He
Cade,
is.
we've suffered through enough bad OU football the last few years. And no offense to Dylan Gabriel even, but this guy's got some different juice to him. He's just got a different swagger about him that reminds you of a Baker Mayfield, that reminds you somewhat Jalen Hurts in a way where it's just, calm and cool. Like, he's got some juice.
He does. And there's the stuff you see, on TV, and there's the stuff you see during the game where he's out there, he's trying to help hype the crowd up. Everyone is doing their part. The defensive line, Tyler, we talked about it a little bit. We didn't do an Illinois State game. We didn't go a deep dive into that after the game. But that was one of the concerns you had was this D-line going to be ready against the Michigan team that we all knew was going to try to ground and pound OU to death? And they answered the call and more. There were plays later on in the game where you see Michigan's O-line, it's a 5-man victory for OU up there. Every single offensive lineman gets beat. They get pushed back 2 yards off the line of scrimmage. It was beautiful. It is just, I talked to you about this a little bit. I've said it to some people I know. This is what Brent Venables was going to bring back to Oklahoma. But man, after a decade plus, it felt like, of just not being able to see that, it still feels weird to say, you know what? This defense is out on the field. I feel perfectly fine with what's about to happen. I know that they're probably going to get a stop instead of maybe the other team throws it straight at our corner and they somehow catch it.
Well, and on top of that, we talked about this during the SEC conference preview. Like, on paper, this had a chance to be an absolutely disgusting front seven, even with the loss of Danny Sutherland. And so far, that Michigan game erased pretty much any doubt I had, for the Illinois State game of like, I don't know. You're right. All night long, I don't think any Michigan lineman was comfortable. And the only really big game they had, that touchdown run was not necessarily the fault of the D-line. It was miscoverage by the cornerback, right, in terms of assignment. So, in terms of that, this D-line, you want to talk about whooping in the trenches. They were putting a whooping on Michigan. And that was, you can tell Michigan felt that. Like, and I got to say, kudos to Bryce Underwood, for, you're going to look at a stat line and think, oh, he played horrible. For the pressure that was on him all night, I thought he handled it better than any freshman I've ever seen.
Yeah, and we talk about the in-stadium environment versus looking at the box score afterwards. It didn't feel like he went 9 for 24. He had an impact on this game. Justice Haynes, he had the big 75-yard run. You look at it and they go, well, 75 out of 125, that's not that impressive. That's the point. OU's defense shut him down a majority of the night outside of the one big run he had, which was a great cut by him. The defense misses up their assignment, and that's how that happens. And that would, to give credit to Michigan there, that play snatched the juice out of the environment for a few minutes. That was a bit of a backbreaker, Rose. It's 14-0. You start the second half, one play, 75 yards. And you just start to
Well,
think
not
to
only
yourself,
that,
is this really happening again? We spent all that
right?
effort,
Yeah.
but other than that,
That's
I mean,
exactly what I was thinking, man.
yeah,
Jeez, that was and watching on TV. Like, same thought for me was like, oh boy, here we go.
yeah,
All this hype, all this,
yeah,
and then here's the big run. Here's where Michigan gets back into it. But that just didn't happen.
yeah.
That was very pleasing.
And that's where I kind of get to with where the defense is now. I thought they played fantastic. Outside of one bad play, special teams puts you in a horrific bind. You hold them to a field goal there. The defense, two or three bad plays, and we're looking at a 3 on the board for the Wolverines instead of a 13. You could say the same thing
And I only,
you could say the same thing on the other side, I guess, but if you're Oklahoma, Kanik missing a touchdown where he's wide open. Mateer could have thrown that a little bit better as well, but that's right by Kanik's fingertips. You have the interception where you have Huggins in the middle, you overthrow him a bit. There's some things to clean up for OU, but the thing I keep in mind is J Knott is still not 100%. We still haven't even seen Giovanni Gibson yet for OU. This offense is nowhere close to complete, and that's why, with Mateer playing the way he did, I'm fine with OU's offense as it is right now. It's only going to get better. It's week 2. I like where OU's offense is at. They made a lot of mistakes on offense and a lot of mistakes on special teams. They still covered and beat a good Michigan team by 2 scores.
well, that's kind of where I'm thinking. Look, the great win and all that, but the fact that there was as many mistakes in this game, and you still win, pretty comfortably. I think that's exciting. It's a little, anxiety inducing because you hope they reach that ceiling. But like you were saying, like their potential in terms of this team is not even close to being reached. But Tier had, for as many great throws as he had, he definitely had a couple. You mentioned the interception. You mentioned the overthrow uh, to Kanik. And there's one or two others. I think of that pass to Deion Burks that if he just puts a little touch on that, that's a touchdown.
Yeah.
Instead he tries to laser it and he gets swatted away. There's a couple moments like that. It's not many, but where you could tell he's just kind of trusting himself in terms of iron town a little too much. And if you go back and patch those things up, I mean, the potential there is remarkable. And he had a couple of wow throws. Obviously, the one that I think got me the most, well, the two in his own end zone, just throws an absolute dot to Burks on the sideline, who made a great catch to get him out of the end zone. And then obviously spinning away from the pressure, rolling right and firing it downfield and hitting Satanga. Like that was nasty as well. So those two show you what it can be, but the fact that there's even room for that to grow is pretty exciting.
Yeah, and that's what people, I think, that's what I took away from it, is that's why I feel confident in OU's offense is the no, what are you doing? Oh God, he's sacked. Oh my God, we got a 40-yard gain out of it. That type of play is back. And to do that against Michigan, who we know is going to have a stout defense, who we know is going to shut people down a lot this year, that makes me feel really good. That we're still not 100% and we're able to do that on people makes me feel really good. Special teams, we got to talk about that. I don't know what happened with the special teams for a while. It just went absolutely bonkers in the opposite direction. The roughing the kicker or roughing the punter, technically, no reason to do that. Absolutely did not need to. Completely unforced mental mistake. Luckily, Michigan misses a 32-yarder. That could have been worse than it was. Other penalties that OU needs to clean up. But the thing that stood out to me the most is that 8-minute drive at the end of the game for a field goal. OU lined up in the I formation and people about lost their minds in the stands. People were like fainting just about. Seeing OU line up and just pound the ball at Michigan, out Michiganing Michigan, playing that Big Ten bully ball we all talk about of, okay, we're going to run the ball at you. And there's nothing you're going to do about it. You cannot stop it. That felt great, Tyler. That felt 100% perfect to see it done. OU goes 9 for 17 on third down, holds Michigan to 3 for 14, and OU wins the time of possession against a downhill type of team. Those are things you love to see. I love that style of football. I've made that very clear. If you've watched any episode of any of our shows about college football, that is the type of style that is the put the game away. Let's get out of here with a win. And Oklahoma executed it perfectly. And it's been a long time since I've been able to say that. Jeff Levy's teams couldn't do that. Lincoln Riley's teams at times struggled with that depending on the year. It was great to see. This OU team, I'm not going to say they have it. I'm not going to say they're going to win a national title or anything. That schedule kind of makes it a little bit hard to say they're going to do that, but they'd be battle tested enough. But this Oklahoma team has promise. That's a lot better than we could say 2 of the last 3 years at this time already.
Oh, it is. It is. And that makes it really exciting.
It does. It's nice to see the crowd be alive. Student section, I sent you a picture of it. Student section was full of 90 minutes before the game started. I can't remember the last time, even for Alabama last year, even for Tennessee, even for some of these other games, I can't remember where we could have started the game half an hour early. The entire place was already filled up. Credit to a lot of the Michigan fans that traveled. That entire upper third deck just about was maize and blue. They made their voices heard when they had their moments. There were Michigan fans everywhere. Didn't have a problem with them. Of course, they're friendly people, but it was one of those big time field games, and we don't get that often enough in Norman. But everyone brought the energy. I get the feeling that's going to happen when Auburn comes in 2 weeks.
Yeah, better. You need that type of environment, especially with, Auburn. And to his credit, Jackson Arnold looking like a competent team, looking like a team that,
Yeah,
they feel, hey, maybe we're a little slept on. So you better bring that environment there too.
absolutely. But we could keep going on this forever. But there was something going on that didn't make sense that was happening at the time, but we'll try to put some more perspective on it. I talked about this last week where there are certain games that they'd announce the score at the stadium and you go, okay, that's not real, but okay, sure. Well, let's roll with it. This was one of them. South Florida stuns
Mhm.
the Gators 18-16. They go into the swamp and win. This doesn't happen often for a non-Florida State or Miami, Florida team to come in here and win this game. These are always big games when you're able to go on there and say, hey, we're a Florida team, they're a Florida team. First team to do that since Stetson in 1938. A Florida team not named
Jeez.
Miami or Florida State to go and win in the swamp. And this was kind of what we've talked about with Florida, though. This is the thing that kind of concerned me a little bit. I thought they'd get over this. There are moments where this offense just stalls and it just goes nowhere. And you look at it and go, well, DJ Lagway threw for 222. The run game looked fine. I mean, Ball had 93 yards. You can look at that box score and go, well, they had 355 yards. Well, what's going on here? 11 penalties. Florida controlled the time of possession. Wasn't that great on third down, however, had the one interception. And you let a team like USF just hang around and hang around. You have the special teams miscue with the snap that goes over the punter's head and you can feel that game start to flip a bit. And once USF gets up 15-9, Florida had to make a quick response, and they did to their credit. But then you just keep messing around and messing around. And what's going to happen, Tyler? How many times have we seen this happen in the last few years? You have to put these pesky teams away because if you don't, Byron Brown's going to make a play. South Florida's going to get some momentum back. They're going to feel that confidence and say, we're down 1 point. We don't have to get a touchdown here. We can win this thing with just a chip shot field goal. It's exactly what happens, perfectly executed. And we just start talking about USF being a legitimate team. This isn't just well, Boise was bad without Genty. Well, maybe Florida's just not that great. We need to have an honest conversation, and we'll get there. South Florida plays Miami this week. It may be the biggest game ever in the history of the CW network of all things. We're gonna have a conversation. We're gonna find out, was this more of just is Florida not as good as we thought, or is this USF team the 100% instead of 95% front runner for that group of 6 playoff spot?
Yeah, I mean, what an incredible effort from South Florida. They stole it in pretty much every definition of the word, right? You can't necessarily say they were maybe the better team, but at the end of the day, they won the game and did what they needed to win the game. And you talk about history. I mean, if they could go be competitive with Miami, they're 18-point underdogs as we speak right now. Um, they could go be competitive with Miami. Yeah, the American Conference is a little uh, deeper than what people think. Most years, but they go lose that in a close battle, and they go post wins after that. We might have to be talking about USF as a playoff contender. I mean, legitimately, right? If one of the SEC teams had a win against 25th ranked team to start the season, and a convincing win, might I add, not just
Yeah, it was a
slopping
smackdown.
around and won. It was a smackdown, and then went on the road against another SEC team that's highly ranked as Florida. They'd be a top 10, maybe top 5 team in the country right now.
Yeah,
And I'm not trying to make a case for USF as that, but I'm just saying if you replace what they just did with Vanderbilt, Vanderbilt will be pushing for the top 10.
they would. And I mean, and USF
I
got
mean,
rewarded. They got moved up to 18 in the poll. They're over Alabama, which is
not
a
high enough.
little, a little,
Not high enough.
not something I thought we would have said a few weeks into the season, but here we are.
I'm
USF,
starting to think that college football 26 is a little bit better sim than I think it is.
maybe
Some of the
they might have put just the right amount of chaos factor in there with the random upsets and all of that. But I mean, the USF story is one that we will learn a lot more from this upcoming week. So I don't want to jump the gun on them yet. But man, if they
yeah,
just even cover that spread against Miami, which I mean, hey, if they can beat Boise, if they can beat Florida, who's to say they don't give Miami a game down there? That's a weird afternoon game. You never know what
sure.
happens. That's another going to be a big point of pride game. South Florida versus Miami, Tampa versus Miami. You get that little bit of a rivalry there. You get that chip on your shoulder. I like to see what the Bulls can do in that game. I'll leave it with that. I'm not going to pick them to win, but we'll see what they can do about it. But we've got another crazy game to talk about because Mississippi State, perfection in the first half. The Mississippi State comes out and just starts hammering Arizona State. I mean, it is from the jump, 1 minute drive. Blake Shapen looks great. Mississippi State's able to sling the ball all over the place. Brennan Thompson gets a big reception in there. Mississippi State is just dart after dart. And Arizona State looked lost for a little bit. This looked like a team that, kind of like we talked about with Boise last week. Your best player is gone. Your most memorable player is gone for sure. How do you respond? And Arizona State, credit to them, they got back up off the mat. They storm back. They take the lead late. It looked like, okay, Arizona State got their big scare. They're going to get out of here. But Mississippi State had a little bit more to say about it. The goalposts go down in maybe record time. I mean, I don't know if you saw the videos or not.
I
Those
didn't know.
goalposts were down in 20 seconds after the game ended. I don't know how they got them down that fast. And it wasn't the normal, they just flip them down. People were ripping them apart and getting it onto the field that quick. I don't know how they did it in 20 seconds. These people are really smart about getting their goalposts down. But for Mississippi State, it's the first time since 1991 that they have beaten a ranked non-conference opponent.
That's
What a
incredible.
crazy stat. And Mississippi State, no turnovers. They were able to force two. They got outpossessed 38 minutes to 22, by the way. Just crazy to think about. This is a game that a lot of people kind of looked at it as an afterthought, but Sam Levitt for Arizona State. I mean, 82 yards, 10 for 22, 2 interceptions. It was an ugly performance for Arizona State. I mean, that offense sputtered and sputtered for a while. Blake Shapen, credit to him, 19 for 33. You may look at that and say, well, that's not too impressive, but 279 and 3 TDs will definitely stand out. And Brennan Thompson, leaving Oklahoma, going back to be reunited with Jeff Lebby, 6 catches, 133, 2 TDs. This is the signature win for Jeff Lebby, obviously, and maybe a sign that Mississippi State might be heading in the right direction. Maybe they're not going to be the cellar dweller in the SEC this year. We'll see if they can sneak up on a few more people.
Yeah, I mean, for Mississippi State, like I said, statement win. They played well enough to win it, but Arizona State clearly didn't take that game serious enough, and they paid for it. That's
They did.
why, you hear these coaches talk about, well, we can't overlook anybody, and people kind of roll their eyes a little bit at times. But this is why right here, because you give an environment. And you want to talk about an underrated environment. Mississippi State can bring a very challenging environment in
They
terms of a
can.
fan
The
base
the
without you
cowbells
realizing it.
the cowbells get to
Yeah.
people.
Well, and Arizona State tried to simulate that, and still somehow they slept on it. And disappointing performance for them. Sam Levitt, a guy that a lot of people very high on the preseason. You got to be better than that. Now I think people got to remember he's still a young quarterback, right? He's still an underclassman technically, so he's going to have to look at this game and say, all right, you know what? I got to get off my own Kool-Aid. I got to get back to work because he's got some great talent. But boy, that was a rough game. That's gonna be one of those that you're gonna really see what you're made of coming back from that. And for Mississippi State, I mean, the only problem is you're in the SEC, you're playing a tough schedule. It's a great win now. How far can you carry it? I'm curious to see what they do with this type of momentum.
Absolutely. I want to see where Mississippi State goes from here. And for Arizona State, I mean, yeah, you can still win the Big 12 and get in the playoff. But man, any shot it feels like of trying to sneak in as an outsider, even though, in theory, they could still run the table. But when you lose a game like this, and you look as bad as you did that entire first half, any goodwill from last year has already been thrown out the window immediately. That has all been burned
I
to the
don't know
ground.
about that.
I think for a
I,
lot
I
of people, it has.
look if Notre Dame could lose to Northern Illinois last year early in the season and make the national championship game and being at large, there's still hope for Arizona State because all it's going to take is a couple dominant performances to follow this up. Say, oh, okay, that was a fluke. They didn't take it seriously. They've got the street cred because they were the preseason favorite for a lot of people. I
Yeah.
think that will carry some weight, and they're going to have some opportunities in the conference to show, hey, we are the best team, right?
Well,
So
we
now I
might
do
have to
agree with
see with how
you.
the Big 12's been doing recently. We'll get to that in a
We'll
bit. But
get to that later in the
yeah,
video, yeah. But I do think there is a scenario, there is room for them to go on, have a great, Big 12 season, so to speak, and not necessarily an Ohio State scenario, but let's say somehow they lose a game and it puts them out of the Big 12 championship game. I could see them still garnering an at large, depending on how that all shakes out. Just
yeah.
because I know the Big Ten, the SEC could get a little hectic as well. So I'm not going to count them out, but they definitely did not leave themselves pretty much any room for error from this point on.
Absolutely. I mean, Arizona State, we're going to have to see how they bounce back, but does not look like a great start to the season. I think a lot of people expected for the Sun Devils. And speaking of the Big 12, we'll keep it here. Baylor giving the conference something positive to think about this week, other than Texas Tech murdering people as they've done once again to Kent State. But that's neither here nor there. Baylor in double overtime gets a 48-45 win. They upset SMU. This was a fun game. This was an old school shootout type of deal. Southwest foes reunited. And Sawyer Robertson, we've talked about it a lot. I love the kid. I think he's a fantastic quarterback. 440 through the air and 4 TDs. I mean, he was just chucking the thing, and anything he threw up for a while, it felt like that was going to get caught. That's where Baylor was once they got into a rhythm in the second quarter. They were able to rally back and have a terrible start. It felt like a game that SMU was destined to win when the first offensive snap bounces off a dude's helmet. The SMU player catches it and runs for 50 yards and scores a touchdown. That felt like a brief moment where it's just like, okay, there's your sign that SMU is dead. The football gods have determined that SMU is going to win this game because of stuff like that. But credit to Baylor, it was only 7-0. They fought back, took the lead eventually, sent this thing. SMU had multiple chances, though, to send this thing going away. And you go, hey, that's a good Baylor team, but we're 2-0 and they're 0-2. Could not get it done. Missed a field goal in regulation. Had an opportunity to win the game. Couldn't get it done. Baylor drags this to double OT and holds on to get the win. And it was a win Baylor needed. Because you go 0-2, and yes, the Auburn and SMU would both be ranked teams that they would have lost to. Still would not have boded well. There's some work Baylor's going to have to do on the defensive end still, but they've played two good offenses. Can't give them too much flack for that, I don't think. But either way, what a
No,
fun game.
Oh, amazing. Game of the weekend in terms of if you're just watching for pure entertainment, right? Like if you're
Absolutely.
saying, hey, my team isn't on this week, they're not playing by good. I need to be entertained. This one did not leave a dull moment. And I think the big thing I learned from this game is I don't know if SMU is a good team. I really don't know if Baylor's a good team at this point, but I do know, like you mentioned, Sawyer Robertson. You better get used to hearing that man. That guy's legit. I
I,
mean, my goodness,
I
he's had a
mean, just
great couple weeks to start the season, and I don't know who can stop him.
yeah, I mean, you just look at the drive summaries here of the scoring. I mean, just back and forth. SMU, of course, blew the 14-point lead. It's not ideal to blow a 14-point lead, Tyler. I don't know about you, but just a fantastic game. These are the type of games I love watching as well. I mean, just pure shootout, lots of offense. Just you don't need to do anything else. Like you said it best. This was the most entertaining game of the week. And for SMU, I mean, this is a game that it felt like he needed to win to really stay alive. I don't want to say stay alive. That's not true. It's the same thing we talked about with Arizona State, but it would have been a nice marquee win game to say, hey, we went out, we beat a Power Four team. We can win these types of games still. We can carry that momentum over from last year. But Baylor able to snatch that win, and for SMU, I mean, they'll be back. They'll be in the ACC picture again, I'm sure. But you would have loved to have this one, but you had a 14-point lead and could not hold on to it.
Yeah, that's another deal. We talk about, shrinking your margin for error. That is another one right there for SMU that unfortunately is going to hurt because now you've got to still take on Miami. You got TCU coming up in your non-conference as well, so you've got to be dang near perfect down the stretch here.
Absolutely. We'll move on to another nice moment for the Big 12. It was the Cyhawk game. It was ugly. It was first to 15 as it traditionally is. It was what else but El Assico. I mean, that is what this game is. That is what this game will continue to be. Iowa was 4 for 6 with 7 passing yards from Gronowski in the first quarter. Iowa is doing Iowa things once again. Iowa State played a competent game. That is how you win this game, by just simply trying to be a little bit more competent than the team that cannot throw the ball for more than 90 yards. And Iowa State did it. They get the win. This game is always hysterical, Tyler. I don't know if you agree with me on that, but I always find this game really funny because it feels like football gets set back 15 years every time I watch this game.
I don't know about 15 years, maybe 150 years, because in this game,
Maybe,
seems like
maybe.
teams forget really what the forward pass is. It's almost a sin to what modern day football is.
I feel
Almost
like
an abomination.
I don't know. I feel like I wake up and this should be like 11 a.m. Big Ten, like early Big Ten network. Like, here's a
Hey,
game
don't
that
lie. This is your Christmas. This game is one where you count down the days, the hours, and the minutes.
it's
'Cause
ugly, and
this is
I
real
do look
football
forward to
season.
this game. This is ugly football in
Uh-huh.
every sense of the word. It feels like the sport gets moved backwards. It's a fun game. It's a really funny game every time this happens. And Iowa, I mean, they had great opportunities to win this game. We've talked about it.
They did.
Iowa has that potential. They always have that potential. They have a great defense. It's just, can that offense do anything? And it still can't. Iowa State's defense is good. Don't get me wrong. This is not a knock on Iowa State. But Iowa just can't move the ball when they have to. Same year,
Yeah.
different story. How many times can we say
Yeah.
that about Iowa?
It seems like week in, week out, year in, year out. So I don't know when they're gonna ever decide to make the change. It may not. Who knows? But for Iowa State, what stood out to be here. Who else? Rocco, man. I mean, again, not gonna wow you every time with the stat line, but when it's time to make the winning plays, guess who's gonna be there? Mr. Rocco Beck. I mean, what else do you say? I'm curious to see what this Iowa State team does in conference play.
I am too. I think Iowa State has done enough to just, I mean, grind it out. That's the type of team they are. That's the type of team Matt Campbell's okay with them being. They're going to grind it out. They're going to do everything they need to do to win. That's Iowa State football in the year 2025. That is who this team's identity is. They did it against K-State. They did it against Iowa. These games are going to be close, and they're going to find a way to win it. Rocco Beck's going to make a big play or two where you go, I didn't know he could do that. That's Iowa State football. They're going to keep finding ways to win. We could go on for hours about how Iowa just does not have an offense again, but I feel like we've beaten that horse to death how many years in a row now? It feels like
Yeah.
forever. But we'll move on to winners and losers of the week instead. And Tyler, we'll start with your winner because Illinois absolutely smashed Duke in the second half.
No, they did. When you looked at big games that are kind of under the radar early in the season, this was one for Illinois
It was.
that was kind of that early litmus test. Where you said, okay, is the team deserving of that top 15 hype? Because Duke's a good team, I think.
They
I
are.
think on paper at least, Duke's a good team. We'll see what they do going forward. But Illinois played the part in this one. Played some, lockdown on defense after a little bit slow start, and then offensively, Luke Altmaier. We talked about him in the Big Ten preview. Not a guy that's gonna, you know, go crazy in terms of what you see from his arm talent, all that. But man, he's going to be consistent. He's going to make good decisions. And he did that in this one 22 to 31, 296, three tutties. Their run game, although it didn't get a lot of yards per carry, it was there when it needed to be. And yeah, I mean, Illinois' got kind of what you're looking for in a good Big Ten team, good defense and offense that can be capable of succeeding when they need to. And now you look at their schedule. We talked about this, in that preview. You get past Indiana, you have Ohio State at home. That could be a loss, and you could be okay with that. And the rest of the schedule, it's theirs for the taking. Are we believing yet in a 10, maybe 11 win Illini, Kate?
We might have to have that conversation once we get past that Indiana game because this Illinois team, I mean, they did kind of both sides of Illinois of what to expect from them. That first half, Duke was playing right there with them. It's a 1-point game at halftime. You start to think, okay, maybe Duke they are good enough to get this upset and prove that they are more than legit, that they need to be taken really seriously. And then Illinois wakes up in the second half, slams the door, and locks it shut. They outscored Duke 31-6 in the second half. And Illinois showed why they're legit. Luke Altmaier, he made plays. 296 through the air. That feels weird to say about a team that wants to try to just run the ball and play great defense, but that's what makes Illinois so special. I talked about it so much last year. Just having a competent quarterback, it was good enough for a team like this to win 7-8 games. But when you have a quarterback like Altmaier who makes the right plays, can throw it a little bit, has that ability to really balance out the offense if he needs to take over in a game like this, he did, where Illinois is getting, not even 3 yards a carry, not even being able to do the 3 yards in a cloud of dust. It helps out Illinois so much. It stretches the game out, stretches the field out, and Illinois gets the big win that they needed to prove that, yeah, this is still a pretty good Illinois team. They didn't go anywhere from last year. But Tyler, we've got to get to my winner of the week. It's pretty obvious. When you are a team like South Florida and people don't really pay attention to you at all unless you do something big, what better way to do it than to go into the swamp, beat Florida, and just make Florida look bad? I mean, you shut Florida down and hold them to 16 points. The defense played great. I already talked about it a little bit, what this can do for a program like USF, what they are building down there in Tampa. I'm excited to see what they look like against Miami. Byron Brown continues to impress. He was out all of last year with injuries. Had a great 2023, comes back and picks right back up where he left off. I think USF's going to be that team we talk about in October and November, that they are one of those teams to look out for in the playoff conversation. I think that's pretty easy to say. They have the resume for it. We already talked about that. If they beat Miami, I think we could unironically, and granted, that's already pie in the sky talk, beating Miami. That's already a bold enough take to make. But if they beat Florida and Miami and Boise State, give me a reason why they should not be a top 10 or top 5 team based off that resume alone.
Oh yeah, no, they absolutely should, and I hope so that they would, because they would deserve that at that point. Like, you would have to talk about them in those circles. Now we'll see if that follows or not.
Exactly.
How
yeah, we got a long way to go.
But still, I mean, yeah, and they're gonna have chances luckily for them, the Americans a conference that has a couple of good enough teams, and they've got some challenges in those games in terms of just on paper where you say, okay, if they go get this win, it's a good win. So they could really have a shot to build that resume regardless what happens at Miami.
Yeah, exactly. Now let's go to losers of the week, because we technically have the same loser just in different ways.
Uh,
Because my God, what is Oklahoma State? Not even what is Oklahoma State doing, just what is Oklahoma State at this point? 69-3. Oregon beats
at the end of the
OSU.
third quarter,
At
mind
the
you,
end of the third quarter, in a
after
game
back to
that,
back sixes.
after back to back pick sixes, Oregon was 28.5-point favorites. I didn't think that was I thought that was too low. I felt Oregon should have been, we didn't do a video, obviously, but I was going to make the claim that I felt like Oregon should have been favored by more, because I felt that this was coming. I didn't think it would be this bad. I didn't think it would be the worst loss in Oklahoma State history, because the last time they lost a game this bad, they were Oklahoma A&M, and Oklahoma was not a state yet. It was still a territory. But there's one thing you don't do, Tyler. And I've said this, and I've said this. You don't make Dan Lanning mad. Because when you make Dan Lanning mad, this happens. He comes to murder your team. And Mike Gundy I don't think he meant to do this, but he opened his mouth and he said, well, Oregon pays for these players, and, kind of it does that routine. You don't do that against a guy like Dan Lanning, who learned from Kirby Smart and learned from Nick Saban the school of taking any slight against you in any way whatsoever, as I am now going to find a way to dismantle your team member by member, moment by moment, point by point, because he will do it. And I think he showed that fair enough. They played it on the Jumbotron before the game about Mike Gundy saying, well, it's just a normal environment. I don't think it's not going to make an impact on Zane Flores or anything like that. And he throws back-to-back pick sixes. And Oklahoma State looked terrible. They looked beyond terrible. They looked like a team that might go 1-11 this year. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but they looked like they had zero pulse. They had zero will to be there. They looked like a team that just doesn't care. And that is a new low for Oklahoma State, I think. That might be worse than last year, because last year there were moments you could tell they were trying. This game was just sad. If you know someone who's an Oklahoma State fan, please keep them in your thoughts and prayers. And because if they lose to Tulsa somehow on the 19th, I don't see where that program could go besides firing Mike Gundy. I think they need to do that last year. I think they might have needed to do it earlier than that, honestly. But we might be watching, I don't want to say the death of Oklahoma State football from what it once was, but man, it kind of feels like it. It kind of feels like it.
Oh, it's definitely the end of an era. Like you
It
feel it
is.
coming,
It is. It's
and
just, will
we
OSU
saw
make a
that.
rebound or not once the problem is gone?
Yeah, I'll say this about Dan Lanning. You say you don't want to make him mad. That's not it. Dan Lanning, like you mentioned, learned from Kirby Smart, learned from Nick Saban. You do not want to give that guy bulletin board material, because you're not
Yeah.
going to find a probably not better motivator of, hey, you know what? Your opponent thinks you're trash. Kirby
Yeah.
Smart tries to do that, but he paints it more as well, everybody is against us, which sometimes works,
Yeah.
sometimes doesn't, because you're still ranked top five in the AP. Nobody's going to take, players are not going to buy that. But Dan Lanning is the best at making his team believe that other team across the way, it may be nice guys, but they deserve to get their asses kicked.
They
Like,
do.
I mean, that's what it is. So I wouldn't want to give him any of that rat poison, as Nick Saban would call it,
Yeah.
because ooh boy, we
But
saw what happened.
I mean, there was a moment after Oregon scores to go up 69-3. I mean, I legitimately thought that they were going to try to score 100 for a moment. There was a legitimate moment where I thought, oh God, they're gonna score 80 minimum. They're gonna have all the third and fourth string in, and they're gonna just keep scoring. 631 yards of offense to 211. That's just incredible. I don't have anything else to say. You outgained them by
I mean,
420 yards. I mean, it was just an
it
ass
was
whipping.
it was. I mean, through and through, it was shocking. For Oklahoma State, you got a bye week. You go lick your wounds. And if you're, you know me, sometimes I'm a little bit of a sunshine pumper. If you're Mike Gundy, you say, "Look, fellas, this is as low as it could get. Now we could go one or two ways. We could continue to be this way, or we could gather ourselves up, and you still got your entire conference season ahead, and you still got a chance to go be a really competitive football team in a conference that, as I will get to in a second, might be very, very wide open."
Yeah. Because Tyler, I mean, this is not the only team in the Big 12 that suffered problems. We're not trying to pick on K State, but they lost to Army.
let, let, let me get it this way. You went Oklahoma State, you're loser of the week. I'm going the entire conference.
Okay,
Kansas State.
I'll keep OSU up on the screen so if someone clicks on this in the
Oh,
middle, they don't see K State and go, these guys just hate K State for. We're not.
K State.
Yeah, we're not hating K State. They just happen to continue to disappoint us every single week.
I mean, they should be 0-3.
They
They
should.
should be an 0-3 football team.
They should.
And that is insane to say because the sad part, and I've said it multiple weeks, I think Avery Johnson is actually a good quarterback.
Yeah.
I mean, Army kind of did their thing to him, but at the end of the day, I don't think he's the reason they've been lost. I don't know what's up with this team.
Yeah.
This is not the Kansas State we grew up with,
Yeah.
Cade.
Exactly.
I mean, this is the Kansas State that's the Wildcats. They're not the Wildcats. They're the
I
Wildcats.
have decided I'm going to try to find the stats for this thing because I did remember there was something I wanted to mention about this Army K State game. You get to see me do pre-prep work in real time on this channel. This is why we do this live, by the way. Army held on to the ball for 40 minutes. They did typical Army things. That's not what concerns me. The fact that they went 6 for 7 on 4th down.
Yeah.
What are you doing? Legitimately, what are you doing? They had it's Army. You expect this, but Cale Helms, their quarterback, had 41 carries. 41! That's just Army football. And they lost to Tarleton. They lost to Tarleton State in double overtime. What is this conference? I don't understand K-State. I don't understand Oklahoma State. I think I kind of understand. I mean, Arizona State lost to Mississippi State. We'll see how that goes. But
they're on there.
They're on there. They're on
you
there
gotta go
too.
win that game.
Yeah, Kansas
Kansas
loses to
is on there.
Missouri.
You
We'll
talk
get
all that crap. Oh my
yeah,
goodness!
we'll get there.
And then the other big offender that we didn't even get to yet, but I got thrown in. West Virginia cost themselves a chance at game day.
They
Game day
did.
said, "Hey, we're going to go to Morgantown," and you lose to Ohio on the road. You
I
put
know
up
they
10
did.
points.
They did. It was bad.
Oh my
It
goodness!
was not a good week. I mean, Iowa State is carrying the conference right now. They're one of the big carriers. Baylor got a big win. And then Colorado even. I mean, they beat Delaware like normal, but that was a 10-7 game right before halftime. There was a moment where it looked like, is Delaware actually going to make this a competitive football? Is Delaware, who has played 6 quarters of FBS football at that point, really going to do this today and just make Colorado's life a nightmare? Because it felt like it for a moment.
There's only 2 teams I trust right now. Granted, they haven't necessarily played great competition, but Texas Tech and Utah, at least they've done what they're supposed to do against bad teams. Yeah. That's the only 2 teams
and they're going to play on Big Noon in a few weeks.
Yeah.
I mean,
that may decide who's the team of the conference.
That might be these are 2 of the top 3 teams in the Big 12. Let's figure it out. Iowa State's in that mix. They haven't done anything stupid, and so far in the Big 12, that's the only declaration that you're a good team. You haven't done anything dumb yet. I can't get over it.
Disgusting.
It's such a sad effort by the Big 12. It's just, we've always joked that this is the most entertaining conference, usually for the right reasons. Like you'll get a weird upset in there, or they'll have a whole week where just everything goes wrong. But this year, it might just be the sicko conference. I mean, I legitimately don't know what I'm looking at half the time. K-State doesn't know what a defense is. OSU died. Arizona State can't win a big game. Baylor doesn't have a defense, but man, they have an offense. I don't know what West Virginia is at this point in the Rich Rod 2.0 experiment. This is just
They don't know what they are.
UCF plays North Carolina in a few weeks. I don't know what that's going to look like either. I don't know what UCF is. I mean, they're down there at the bottom. Arizona, what do we say about Arizona? I don't even know. Cincinnati had their shot, lost to Nebraska. There's so much weird with the Big 12 this year, like more than normal amounts of weird with the Big 12. We're just gonna have to keep an eye on it. I don't understand it. We'll keep the train going here in the best of the rest, but they could honestly be moved on to loser of the week as well, because Kansas has a 21-6 lead at the end of the first quarter. Things are going great. It's the return of the border war. It's a big rivalry, obviously. There were people trying to push that this should have been College game day instead. You people know who you are and you're wrong, but whatever. And then they just get slapped, and then punched, and then wailed on. And Missouri comes storming back and just starts beating up Kansas for a while, just chipping away minute by minute. And then it's a 42-31 win for Missouri. And a game where you look at the offense, 595 for Mizzou, 251 for Kansas. Missouri holds onto the ball for 40 minutes. They go 4 for 5 on fourth down. Yeah, they had 7 penalties, and it's obviously going to be cleaned up by Drinkwitz and company. But man, Bo Pribula, he looks like the guy. He was the backup at Penn State last year, and now he's out here slinging it for Mizzou. 334 through the air, 30 for 39, 3 TDs. He looked fantastic. This might be a pretty fun Missouri team. A year where we said that schedule, you can get past Kansas. There's a few pitfalls in there, but this should still be a solid Mizzou team. They're looking the part again. They're back in the top 25. Here we go again. This might be a fun Missouri team to keep an eye on.
Yeah, but like you said, that schedule a little bit tougher than last year. They're going to have to really prove it this year. But to your point, Pribula was no doubt the story of this game. I mean, you talk about a guy that's look, if Drew Aller doesn't come back to Penn State this year, Bo's starting.
Yes.
He's that guy. He was next in the line. He transferred because he said, hey, you know what? Drew made his choice, and I respect that, but I got to go get mine. And he was clearly ready for the moment. And Mizzou is lucky to have that man there. Maybe sending a little extra payment to Penn State for that one, because my goodness, I mean, what more can you ask from this guy?
And the other thing, Tyler, the other thing that's crazy to me is he's the story in a day where Mizzou had 2 100-yard rushers. You have a guy run for 11 yards a carry in Jamal Roberts, and Kansas had 28 total rushing yards. Missouri just dominated them up front. I mean, they just bullied Kansas. That's why I say, it's 42-31, but it's kind of the same thing that happened with Oklahoma and Michigan, where, yeah, that score looks like, oh, this was a bit of a shootout. But after that first quarter, I mean, it just went full throttle in favor of Mizzou.
Yeah, no, it was impressive to see him bounce back from that slow start. That's a team, and we talk about this all the time. If you want to compete at a high level, college football, you got to have a quarterback. They know they got a quarterback.
They do. Missouri, big win for them. Shout out to the kid kicking it into the Kansas sideline or towards the Kansas sideline instead of trying to get that $25,000. That's college football. You love to see it. It's a rivalry. These two hate each other. People don't really talk about that enough. It's not a big national rivalry most of the time. These schools absolutely hate each other. It's great to see that they still hate each other after the realignment battle of the 2010s, and just, I want to see this game played more, because these two, the animosity leading up to it was a lot of fun, and Missouri comes in, gets a big win, and we got to wrap this thing up. One more game to talk about, the first SEC conference game of the year, and man, Ole Miss did not make it easy on themselves for a while. 30-23, they survive. I don't even know if surviving is the right word to put it. They win at Kentucky. Kentucky, for some reason, just gives Ole Miss problems. I don't know what it is. Austin Simmons is going to have to figure out his turnover problem, because 2 interceptions, Did not look well at times. 13 for 24. Yeah, threw for 235. And Kentucky's not a world beater or anything. Their offense is something. But man, there were a few moments in this game where it just looked like, is Ole Miss really going to do this again? We all remember what happened last year when they lost to Kentucky. There's no way this happens again, right? And for Ole Miss improved, they got better, but Kentucky did cover. How about that? Kentucky 7.5-point underdogs, and they lose by 7. They got the cover. Shout out to Kentucky for that. They did something positive at least today. But man, just Ole Miss, gutsy win, had to grind it out on the road, and they got the job done despite a lot of mistakes, a few miscues here and there. It's what you wanted to see if you're Ole Miss. I mean, you still found a way to win this game when Jackson Dart couldn't beat them, and all that offense and all that defensive talent, they couldn't beat them last year. You found a way to get on the road and get revenge on a team. You would have liked to see it been a little bit better. You didn't want it to be a 7-point game, obviously. But man, good win for Ole Miss.
Yeah, good in the sense, like you said, they gritted out. You need some of those in the
You
season.
do.
You can't play your perfect game every time. And that's got to be the message from Lane Kiffin to his guys. Like, hey, that was us at a bad game and we still found a way to win. And I say that because the challenge against Arkansas this week, you better be ready, buddy.
Yeah.
Because Arkansas, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying they're going to be a world beater. Played bad competition to start, haven't really gone that far geographically, but they've looked the part, and we know they've got some guys, they got a quarterback that can play a little bit, little dual threat action, Taylor Green.
Yeah.
So you better be prepared. That's kind of an interesting 8.5 line they got right now. That might be another game where Ole Miss, if they're not on early, might have to grit that one out. So see how the Rebels do.
You can never underestimate what any random Arkansas team is going to do to you.
No.
And Ole Miss knows that. They've been on the end of that a few times where Arkansas picks that as their, we're going to play like one of the top 5 teams in the country today for no reason type of deals. That's just the life of playing Arkansas. You just have to deal with that occasionally. But other than that, I mean, I think it's about time to wrap this thing up. We've gone through a lot. It doesn't really feel like a lot here on a normal week 2, but it turns into, we get one of these. I said it at the beginning of the video. I'll say it again here. This was one of those weeks that starts out slow. You think, man, there's not a lot of big games. And then everything goes crazy by about the middle of the Saturday. And you go, what am I watching? What is happening? 3 top 17 teams have gone down. We didn't even cover LSU not looking great against Louisiana Tech. Georgia only puts 28 on Austin Peay. Penn State looked ugly for the first half against FIU. Texas, that first 10-minute abomination against San Jose State. We'll all let that slide for a week. Everyone's still trying to get back into the groove, but if something goes weird week 3, we'll be there to cover it, folks. That's all I can say. We'll have the NFL recap tomorrow. We are at halftime, it looks like right now, of Chicago, Minnesota, as I look at the screen that I've got here. Folks, as always, if you made it all the way through this video, we do appreciate it. If you like the video, leave us a like, leave a comment down below. What do you agree with? What do you disagree with that we said? Anything else you want to add? How did your team do this week? We're always happy to hear how everybody did. If you won, great. If you lost, well, hey, we got a ways to go. It's only week 2. It's only about to be week 3. We've got some time. But if you're listening over on Spotify, of course, give us 5 stars over there. Continue to spread the word. We're still almost to 160 subscribers. Can we get there? I would like to think we can. It's free. It doesn't take too long. It only takes a few minutes of your time. But folks, as always, until next time, have a good one, everybody.